Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining this session, and thank you, Arun, for joining the session and accepting the invite. We are pleased to welcome you here on the session. So, to give just a glimpse about your achievement, I would like to share a few glimpses about you. Arun Narayanaswamy, we have a speaker here who is the co-founder of Smart AI Hub, SmartHub.ai, that of a startup that came into existence during the COVID pandemic. As you all are aware that we have gone through a lot of stuff during the COVID pandemic, but we have seen people achieving a lot of stuff during the COVID pandemic as well. So Arun Narayanaswamy is one of the example who would be sharing his views here with us, and to just give a brief about his achievements. Is SmartHub.ai helps organization around the world leveraging edge and IoT to reinvent themselves and thrive in an ever-changing world. At SmartHub, Arun bridges business and technology, leveraging multiple decades of learning from working with some of the brightest people and experience from building products for enterprises and governments at VMware, RC Security, EMC, and couple of startups. He's passionate about education for everyone, and he's always looking for newer ways to contribute. So I would like to hand over the stage to Arun. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Jayalakshmi. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Now let me share my screen. Thanks for the nice introduction. Let me. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I am assuming this is visible now, the slide.
Yes, Arun, we can see that.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks for the nice introduction, and good afternoon, everybody. As Jayalakshmi mentioned, I used to be working at VMware till early last year, 2020, and since then, me working with a few other co-founders and an amazing team, we formed what we call SmartHub.ai. I'll talk a little bit about it, but the focus of today's discussion is about the edge and what is happening there, and what can we do to leverage this phenomenon that's going through our industry. So this is what I'm going to be talking about. First, a little bit of introduction to who I am. These are some of the roles that I play as a father, husband, son, as well as a son-in-law. I'm the dedicated electrician and plumber at home, as well as of course, I'm a nice neighbor. You should ask my neighbors though. I read a lot of books. I probably have about 4 or 5 in progress at any time, and I have a lot of nice friends who actually make good recommendations for things to read. I trek a lot, at least in the past 15 years. I've been focusing my treks primarily in the Himalayas. I also organize a few treks, non-commercial, just with friends. I do mentor a few people, and it's good to see them grow up in their career as well as their life. I play the role of writing code. I focus on the product. Obviously, entrepreneur is a more umbrella term that kind of means everything, all the way from accounting to purchasing to selling to, of course, everything else. So this is what I do in terms of the different hats that I put on. My interests are in computer science. I studied at the master's level. Security is something that has been focused on throughout my career, whether it's IT security, cloud security, and more recently, IoT security. Of course, AI and IoT/edge seems to be what I've been able to get a lot of work done in the past 4 or 5 years. I read a lot, and I actually try to apply a lot of that reading from a systems thinking. I read a lot of psychology books and try it on myself and my family, and sometimes on coworkers. Spiritualism is very important to me, and of course, I also enjoy different types of music, and I play the piano, the Western classical piano. So, having talked about myself, I work for this company called SmartHub, and we have a presence in California and Seattle in the US, and in Bangalore. I'm based out of Bangalore, and what we do at SmartHub is help organizations deal with the complexity and see how they can leverage edge and their IoT projects to do the digital transformation that they want to do, as well as help them specifically in leveraging AI to make better decisions and timely decisions. Device management, making sure everything is has the right configuration, the right software, the security settings are all at top notch, and ease of simplify the deployment, and from the day that they deploy a device to the value that it produces for the business. Um, and we started this journey when I and some of the co-founders, we are part of VMware. It was a research project, and lot of learning from building and selling this product at VMware. And since then, we've also expanded that, and we are now working on solutions that are on top of the platform. And we have a stellar team that comes from various backgrounds and all these interesting skills that people bring into our organization. Um, we'll have obviously time at the end for questions, so I'll just walk through some of these topics, and then you can continue to ask your questions on the chat, and we'll catch up on them towards the end. So one of the things that I was thinking about this particular webinar, and this is last week I was on a trek in Kashmir, and this is one of the photos and one of the mountains we had to climb to cross this what's called the Kashmir Great Lakes Trek. And I was thinking about resilience, and I mean, when you look at this, when we looked at this mountain, we said, this is not possible. This is like stacked up against us. There's snow, there is so slippery rocks, and there's almost no vegetation. And it's going to be tough to climb this mountain pass and get onto the other side. But we eventually did. Um, and of course, with all the right guides and others. And I was thinking, what's the right way to express what is this resilience? What does it mean? And this set of plants is what we encountered while climbing this particular mountain. As you can see, the top half of the mountain has no soil. It does have water, but any amount of silt that collects in the glacier and the ice is what goes through these cracks in these rocks. And this plant, which survives only in the summer, so it's like this 3 or 4 months of sunlight and life, and then it goes back to the seeds, and then next year it actually comes back again. So with almost nothing, no resources except a little bit of water, and the soil amount of soil in between the cracks that you see in these rocks, this is all the plant has. And it's able to leverage not just that, but it also finds out a way to it actually grows in the place where the water collects when it rains. So this was like striking to me as okay, this is resilience. So despite everything stacked up against the plant, it survives year after year, and it grows back, and during the summer season. And this is how all of us are looking, or we need to look at our own career, our own work, and overall our life. In terms of things, will always be there'll be constraints, there'll be um, issues and things that are out of our control. But within that framework, how can we find the opportunities, and how can we think differently? How can we consume the resources that are made available to us and make it last as long as what we can? So there's been a lot of learning at SmartHub in this past year and a half, working through the COVID times, and working globally with customers and partners around the world. But this is what represented me as resilience. And uh, given everything that's going on in the world, I think we're still not out of the woods from a COVID perspective. And I'm sure there have been a lot of talk about how this event, as well as the speakers at this event, how they producing newer creative ideas that all of us can leverage. So I'm looking forward to learning more from this event, and all the other speakers also. So having said that, let's get into the topic, which is edge. So taking a step back and looking at it from a zoomed out position, if we look at how computing evolved, it has been going back and forth between centralized and decentralized. We started with flames, where everything was centralized, and then the concept of mini computers came up, where people wanted to get these computers, and primarily at individual organizations rather than some central place. Then client server technology took control or popularity, and you had servers centrally, but then clients all over the place distributed. And then data center as a concept, where individual organizations started storing their data and process it, and use that for their business. Then cloud in the early 2000s started taking a lot of traction, and it is definitely still one of the uh, critical ways how we run most of whatever we do is driven by cloud. And then alongside this, mobile plus cloud took um, birth, where you still process some of the data in the apps that is on our mobile, whereas it still stores some of the data and communicates back with other users and other systems through the cloud. And of course, serverless is another mode of how cloud became started getting consumed. And all of this is now leading to this, what we call the edge computing, where compute is not necessarily only in the cloud or in a data center. It's all around us, and it's more importantly, it's wherever there is information or data, it's actually it's better processed right there. So this is how this evolution has been going as a pendulum from one direction to the other. But what exactly is the edge? Um, from a very textbook definition, it's one form of distributed computing, where there are centralized resources, there are decentralized resources, and wherever possible, the decentralized resources, which is more closer to wherever action is happening, and is processed right there at that point where the data is present or generated. And but it still coordinates with all other systems around the world through the cloud and the connectivity to the cloud. um, so it could be people, or it could be machines and things that could be producing or consuming that information. This whole network of these edge systems is what we call the edge as a general term. And in another way of looking at it is something that's not inside a data center or a cloud, but something that's actually out in the physical world, on the street around us, in our homes, in our workplaces, in the satellites that we all use to communicate. In by all of this is all the physical world, and we can also call that as the edge. So there's no perfect definition, but this kind of these two are the ways to look at what is edge. When you look at edge, this is another way to perceive that what is edge. So if you look at the cloud and data centers being the center where eventually all data comes in, then there is the, the next layer where the industry has been using different terms from fog to mist to core. Um, what this means is it's not necessarily in the cloud or a data center, but it's slightly more closer to where the actual data is being produced, and this is in between layer, and then the edge is basically everything outside this, and this kind of aligns with that the physical world. So everything in the physical world is the edge, and what's not is somewhere in between, and then what is in the cloud is what's in the center. And obviously using more of sensors and um, controllers that you see here as edge devices, those are not necessarily the only edge or the devices. And the other aspect is edge and IoT are somewhat interrelated very closely. Internet of Things is basically the interaction between the physical things that we have around us, and that producing some value either as to me as a consumer or as a for a business. So if you want to look at what is IoT and what is not, in general, we look at anything that's an asset from an individual perspective or a business perspective is 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 a and any infrastructure that's used to monitor those assets could be looked at as Internet of Things. It could be your things that we wear, that could be IoT devices. It could be something that's in a building, something that produces electricity, distributes electricity, the food, I mean, the process of producing food from an agriculture perspective and distributing that food and other things that we consume. Of course, the smart cities, parking, lighting, crime prevention, all of this also leverages a lot of Internet of Things. So the definition is obviously very unbounded, and as newer use cases come up, this keeps expanding. Um, the personalized devices, what you see on the right, is what I would say it's not an IoT device. But let's take a moment to understand why. What problem does Edge solve? Why do we need this? We didn't have this, let's say, 10 years ago. But what has changed now, and that we actually need to consider this? And so some of the use cases that are new, whether it's augmented reality, virtual reality, whether I'm sitting at a stadium and I'm watching a game, instead of just looking at whatever I'm physically seeing, can I get different perspectives as though if I'm seated at different points in the different places within the stadium? Can I see that right away on my mobile or a tablet or a television screen in front of me, but without having to go all the way to the cloud? And can I get different perspectives, or holographic communication is starting to become a lot more um, main stage, so to speak, with Stephen Hawking appearing through as a hologram at a conference that happened in Hong Kong, where Stephen was still in the UK, and remote presented and talked at the conference. And of course, there's been a lot of such holographic participation. Manufacturing is an area that's always um, uh, the thing that actually moves the world, and what we call the fourth generation in the manufacturing systems and automated industrial systems. Autonomous driving, other forms of mobility, whether it's a public transport or other individual transports. All of this brings telehealth and especially remote surgery, etc., where the haptic and the tactile, the response times have to be sub-millisecond. All of this requires processing at the edge. It cannot be done um, in a cloud, and or you cannot make everything happen in a very powerful device. So it's somewhere in between. There are edge computing, right near where the action is happening. So what does all these new use cases require? One is low latency data processing, so that the round trip time. So if I'm immersed in a augmented reality, and I'm trying to engage in a conversation where I'm also participating with somebody else, or there is other data that's being rendered as part of this. This is extremely time sensitive, because when I move a hand, I want that to be reflected in my AR glasses. So it cannot even take the time it takes to go to the cloud and come back. Or there could be other time sensitive applications, like in a manufacturing plant where I'm using a camera to monitor the quality of items that are going on an assembly line. Even a few milliseconds of latency will probably make that element or whatever the component go into the wrong bin. So I need to react. I need to recognize the image, react immediately. So it's time critical applications. Um, Data where instead of spending a lot of money just sending data back and forth between cloud and the edge, what if data can be processed right where it's generated? Security being one of the reasons for this localized or distributed data processing. And other aspect of security being the operation networks versus the IT networks. There's still a lot of difference in which how these networks are secured. There's been a lot of improvements in the hardware. The prices keep getting lower. A lot of capabilities with the GPUs available for throwaway prices at the edge, where now computing and especially AI can be done at the edge. The networks themselves have actually changed significantly with 5G and what's called the MEC, or the multi-access edge. A lot of applications that used to run on the cloud can be temporarily brought to, let's say, if I am a user using an application on my mobile, and I happen to go into a mall, and that mall happens to have a 5G MEC cluster, where if for a high latency or a low latency application that I'm trying to use on my mobile, that application, instead of running on the cloud, could actually be instantiated inside the building while I'm there, and give me very good response rates. And as I leave the building, it could actually just clear away. And then, so it's like a cloud application temporarily moving to close to where I am. And none of this requires me to do any configuration. Of course, 6G is coming, where it's pushing the boundaries beyond what 5G is capable of today, while 5G is still being deployed in many of the markets around the world. Of course, the newest entrant is low Earth orbit satellites that make it possible for devices in hard to reach areas, like the rural areas, to mountains and other areas where connectivity was always an issue. So now with these low Earth orbit satellites, connectivity is no longer a problem. But what can you do with that connectivity? This is the technology part that's enabling it. All of this is what drives the innovation and new use cases, and businesses are ready to leverage all of this. I'm sure you're thinking, is it just the next hype, or is this real? Is this for real? Let's look at some of the data. IDC is actually estimating that by 2025, we will have 56 billion units of connected devices in use. Whereas Gartner says by the same time, just if you look at the industrial control systems, the AI running at the edge would go from 5% to 30%. This requires a lot of compute infrastructure at the edge, the right hardware, the right software, the distribution, the containers, orchestration, etc. The other finding from Gartner is this is very interesting because this is where what they're claiming is 20% of the installed edge computing by 2023, just uh, 2 years from now, that compute will be delivered by the large scale cloud providers. The other 80% is up for grabs. It's available for others to play with. This is where startups and newer innovation and other use cases. This is the opportunity that all of us are actually offered to. So this is something that maybe some of you in the audience will actually build something new and take a piece of this pie. And the big thing is it's not like cloud is going away. So it's actually very synergistic where both edge and cloud you need both of them, and the way to make them work together is where the future of technology is. And this is a $1 trillion business, and this is just, if you look at the economic value that's possible from IoT use cases, it's going into the double digit of $1 trillion per year by 2025. So it's the right time to get into edge and definitely keep pushing the boundaries from there. I think I will stop here just to make sure I have leave some time for questions.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you so much for taking us through how the data is produced and consumed and what constitutes the IoT and why do we need a edge? And is it a real or is it another hype? So it was a it was really nice session, and with this I have one question, one last question, to understand if you have
Sure.
gone through any challenges during the process of pushing the boundaries, and all your achievements. And if you have gone through these challenges, how did you deal with it and what kept you going? So, and that.
It's there are technical challenges, there are organizational challenges from different functions having different priorities, different stakeholders, the ability to make decision quickly, etc. But what has kept us going is focusing on the problem and the solution, rather than the saying that I have this cool technology and how can I sell that technology, versus if we are razor sharp focused on the customer's problem, then a lot of these things fall into place. We are able to uh, not put technology first, just the user and their problem first, and how do we solve that. Sometimes it's not necessarily a technology, it's a combination of technology and some non-tech aspect that comes together to create a solution. This is what has worked with for us in this past 1.5 years. Although we leverage a lot of technology, sometimes it's the problem and solution focus that helps us keep the keep moving forward, as well as come up with some creative ways to solve problems.
Okay. Thank you, Arun. Thank you so much. And I think we are up to the time. And it was really great to have you in this session and, listening to all of the achievements and, all of the talk. So it was really great. Thank you so much for being there. Thanks a lot. Thank you,
Appreciate it.
everyone.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.